Back guys, and here we go again with our next highlight, which is going to be 2/3 pale sand and a 2/3 pale sand and 1/3 dark sand. Again, I'll use this roughly the legs as a example. I'm not sure if you can hear all the lawnmowers going in the background, but it would appear that half my estate has turned out to mow their lawns as there's a break in the weather. So I apologise if there is any background bleed through. The problem is when you're painting white is you don't want it to look too mucky, and you don't want you need to show some contrast in there. If you were doing some cabinet piece, or some high-end piece, you could obviously be glazing different shades in, doing some blending, some wet blending and whatever, but I just wanted to show how I would be painting my Napoleonic figures. Well, Napoleonic figures I paint for people or myself. Well, for that matter, any figure that has this type of white on. I will be showing, if this video works, which I very much doubt, but if it does, I will be showing cold white as well, how to paint with the grey. There's obviously lots of fine tutorials out there on YouTube. This is just me adding to that pile of videos really, but as I've always said, you can just watch lots of how-to videos and then take bits away from them, what works for them, or you might think, well, I think substituting a particular colour there would work better for you, and that's all good, because it just expands the knowledge really. Again, I'm wiping the excess paint off before I apply the brush to the figure. Sorry if I'm blanking things out. As I say, I didn't really. Well, it's going to not be easy painting behind a camera, and as you guys know, I tend not to. I don't do any editing on my videos. They're just shoot and forget. Just because it's all time consuming, I mean, some people are really into it, and they get all the music on and everything, and maybe I can go down that road one day, but at the moment it's just basic level videos for me. Again, it's by building these like pigments up in the paint, you won't get that chalkiness. Occasionally I still do. Sometimes I, not concentrating, and I don't build a level up as good as it should be, and then I end up having to do an extra 4 or 5 layers to get rid of that chalkiness. Here we go with the last bits for this. As I say, I'll turn the video off again, go around the rest of the figure, and then we'll start again with a fresh colour. Okay guys, see you in a minute. Right guys, at the moment we've gone from our 2 base layers of dark sand, then 2/3 dark sand, 1/3 pale sand, then 2/3 pale sand and a pale dark sand, and now we're going on to pale sand itself. Excitement. Right. This is where now it starts having pretensions to actually be white rather than this butter colour. and you actually start seeing it come together. You'll still get a chalky look to it at this stage, because it's still, unless you're going to do even more gradients, working gradients up, you know, it's still going to be slightly chalky at this stage. But you know, again, we're not doing some type of we're not doing some type of presentation piece. I know there'll be a lot of people out there that just say, Gav, I haven't got the time or the patience to even do that amount of layers. And I totally understand that. Everyone's got a finite amount of time to get their little figures on the table. I don't honestly think that the way I'm doing it, I wouldn't say to you, well, do this and then ink it, you know, with a dip or a, was it known oil or whatever they call it, all that type of stuff. Only because it's going to end up making your figure quite muddy. And this technique that I keep saying technique as if it's something that Gav's come up with, but I just mean the way I paint is, it gives a clean look rather than I don't know. I know it's supposed to put shadows in, and I know it does work, all these different inks and that, especially from a distance. But especially like on white, I much prefer just painting it up slowly, taking your time. I'm actually going slightly quicker on this than I normally would do, and also trying to paint behind a camera, as I've heard people say so many times, is an absolute nightmare. But we'll do our best. I don't think it takes that long though. And if you've got a couple of good YouTube videos chatting away or whatever you're into on YouTube in the background, the time flies. It's amazing when you've got all these YouTube videos and what an expert you become overnight on subjects that you have no idea. Again, I can see a chalkiness to it at the moment, but I'm not fussed at that. Now, what I will be doing with this is actually going round it twice with the same colour. So I won't shoot I won't come back and say, here we are again going over the same stuff. So I'll be doing the 2 layers, and then I'll come back to the next one. So guys, I shall be back in a minute once I've gone around this figure a couple of times, and then we'll go on to the next layer. See you in a bit. Guys, we're back. Gone over it a couple of times with just the pale sand itself, no adding to it, but now we've added ivory, so 2/3 pale sand and 1/3 ivory, again Vallejo. I'm afraid I can't give people any other paint types. I do use scale 75, although I haven't got any of their whites. I would go for ivory rather than any type of plain white. Ivory has that bit of, you could almost say, warmth to it. Again, as usual, just following the creases. I would say that when people are doing regiments, they tend to be flying through them, and you end up with almost like a barber's pole stripey effect. So again, if you can, follow the sculpting. You know, whether it's muscle tone on a arm, or if you're doing clothes. You know, if you've got a good sculpt like these are, you know, use those. Use what the sculptor's put in. You tend to go, if you rush things too much, you end up again losing the quality of your brushwork. You know, I hate to say as I'm doing a tutorial, but obviously this figure isn't going to be maybe up to the best standard that I would normally be painting at, only because it is extremely hard. Oh, I've got too much paint on my brush there. It's loaded too much, you end up with, as I say, the splodges. And as you're coming to now working more on the tops of the creases, so you're working away from the shadow areas, the last thing you want is to do a great big splodge of paint. Now, along with the lawnmowers, I now have my two dogs moaning that they're behind the gate and they want to come into the room. They've waited long enough, but they'll have to wait a bit longer. Again, with all Wargames figures, you know, we've got to show highlights, you know, so that you have a bit of standout on the table. As I say, we're not doing this so it's great for photographs particularly. It's more for the fact that, you know, you've got yourself a decent wargaming piece. So that didn't take long as we're starting to go up on the highlights. So that's the next piece will be adding more ivory to the mix, so we'll be going 2/3 ivory, but we'll do that once I've gone round the figure again. Right guys, back again, 2/3 ivory and 1/3 pale sand, and we'll get to work on these highlights on the legs. Again, it's going to, sometimes you might need a couple of applications. I've not bothered using a hairdryer to speed the process up, because I can go around the whole figure. It's dried out by the time you get back to the starting position again. But I mean, that's another top tip. I mean, the wife was sick and tired of me borrowing her hairdryer. I'm as bold as a coot, so there's no need, I don't have a need for one. But I'd always say I hadn't borrowed it, and she'd always see mucky paint prints everywhere. So in the end, she got me one of these little travelling ones, and that's just ideal. It wasn't very expensive. I think it was under a tenner. So if you are doing, say, a single figure and you want to speed it up, it's just as easy to get a little hairdryer and just put some heat over it. Right, again, I think that's all I can achieve before I go around the rest of the figure. So we've got some more layers built up there, and once I've gone around the whole figure, I'll see if it needs doing. Sometimes it just needs doing a second application in places. You've really just got to have a look. But once I've done that process, then we'll go on to the using straight ivory. So I'll see you in a bit. Right, final couple of layers, and I know you guys have lost the will to live by now and probably got suffering from nosebleeds, but if any of you have stuck with me, thank you very much. We're just onto the ivory now, which I'll just add a little bit of water to. again, I won't show much of this on camera because there's not a lot to be done. I really need to get into all the nooks and, well, not nooks and crannies, but it's a bit harder to do this behind the camera. This is what pulls it all together, really. If you have a bit of a dodgy transition between the colours, what you can do is at this stage is to water that ivory down so it's a wash. Test it out first, you know, whether it's on a very small piece of the figure or you know, on your finger or something. Don't have that paint too thick because it'll obviously blot out everything that you've done. If you do make the mistake of blotting out, you know, thinking, oh my life, I've just put thick white paint over everything, quickly have another brush that's already loaded up with water. So you've dipped it in water and it's obviously soaked a bit up, and then apply it to the area that you've put your wash over, and that will hopefully thin your wash down a bit, and then you could always add a tad bit more water. But try and get it done first time if you've got to do that. So what I'm talking about is if you've got too bright a highlight and you're going into a really dark recess and it looks too stark, then a bit of a trick is to make a paint wash up, and over a couple of applications it will almost act as a blend and blend the colours in slightly. Sometimes I make, you know, right cock up and you think, oh my life, you know, if I'm doing great coats or something like that. But a very thin paint wash is your best friend, because you can usually blend those colours in slightly. It usually takes 2 or 3 applications, but it'll get you out of the mess without having to redo the whole area. And if you've got a hairdryer going, it don't take long. But I don't believe I'm going to do that on this. Now at the moment, yes, I must admit, it looks like polar bear fur. But don't forget, we'll be putting some green piping around cuffs and things, and I believe the lozenges, I call it there, on the cuff, that's going to be red, I believe, on this unit, if my research proves me right. Oh, by the way, the research I've used for this, and I recommend them to anybody that's painting Napoleonics. They're not expensive, and that's the Rawkins CDs. Yes, what are they? Whatever you put in your computer, anyway. You know what I'm like for technology. But I think they're £4 or £5. They don't cover the French ones at the moment, unfortunately. But they've got all the German states, the Italians, Portuguese. Yeah, you know, excellent for reference material. That's not going to cost you a lot of money. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't want to be spending, you know, between £20 and £50 on a book, and they really are a nice way to get started. So I'm going to go around the figure again, 1 or 2 coats of ivory in the places I want to apply them, and then we'll return. We'll have one last look, and then we'll put a couple of photographs at the end just so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll go from there. Cheers, I'll see you in a bit. Right guys, final bit to the video, or part 1 of this figure anyway. So I bet he's not coming up very well under these lights, which is hence a couple of photographs afterwards. But this is what I'm calling finished for now anyway. What I normally do is, once I've finished the entire figure, I usually go around with any highlights that I think, you know, needs a bit of work here and there. As I say, for most of the people out there, this is not only is the video going to be way too long, but the actually, you know, using this method to paint probably might not be for them, and I understand that. As I say, it's just, again, you know, I'm just putting these tutorials up. They're there as a reference for anybody that wants to dip in and, you know, take out what they want from them. He'll look a lot better once he's got some piping round as well. You're not going to see all that white so much. What I would say is you could, if you wanted to, his gillet, his vest thing there, which is, hang on, let me just get my paintbrush. This here, that's underneath his jacket. You could do that in a cold grey if you wanted, just to show a difference in colours. The only thing I'd say is when I've looked at reenactors' pictures, the material tends to be the same or have that same look to it. So, you know, I do it. You'll sometimes see it on my ABs, my 18mm. But at this scale, I don't know if it would look so good. But we will be doing some cold whites anyway on the straps, you know, of his equipment. So, guys, I hope some of you are still awake. Thanks for stopping by and taking a look. The part 2 will be probably the doing the collar, doing the piping. I might just do that just to keep these videos. This will be the longest video, obviously, with the doing all the whites, but I might include the backpack as well, but we'll see. Right, so thanks a lot, and I will catch you again on another video. Cheers. Hello everyone, and welcome to a tutorial by me, Gav. In front of you is a front rank 28mm Napoleonic figure. He's going to represent an Italian the first regiment Italian Fusiliers for the Napoleonic Wars. He's actually a French figure, but we're going to paint him as Italian. This little fella has actually been primered in Vallejo US Navy Ghost Grey, and I've just brushed it on. I do normally, when I'm doing a complete unit of figures, my preferred method is to spray them with a auto primer, in our case in the UK Halford's Grey, and then just brush any bits on with the Vallejo if it's needed for bits that have been missed. He's been base coated in two base coats of Vallejo dark sand. He's then had, just about to start, 2/3 Vallejo dark sand and 1/3 pale sand. I will be putting all this on the text later on some photographs. I apologise if I seem to be all over the place when I'm describing things, but this has literally been, I don't know how many videos I've done. I've got 2 figures actually partially painted already that I've tried. So here we go again. Let me just wash this before we have the paint drying on the tip, which is not what we want. Right, at the moment, because I've had a right mare doing this video, I've actually highlighted these areas here, the creases, with the mix of 2/3 dark sand and 1/3 pale sand, leaving obviously just the base coat in the darkest creases. So we'll move round to the front here and we'll see if we can continue. I'm obviously not going to do the whole figure. I've tried that one. That was a 50 to 60 minute video, which some people might like, some people won't. But when I tried to speed the thing up that I've seen other people do, it just, after I sped it up, I just could not get a voiceover on it for some reason. Hence all the figures that I've almost painted a whole unit without actually painting a unit, if that makes sense. Consistency of the paint is, the base coat, you do it slightly thicker, and what I might do is right at the end of the completed soldier, I might actually go through the paint consistencies for you. Again, I'm not teaching any of the old guard out there how to suck eggs, but there will be lots of new people that, you know, we've all done it. You hunt out videos, you know, to see what how to do something, and I still do now. There's loads of videos. Although you don't see lots of 40k and Malifaux and, you know, Infinity and all the 101 types of things that you can see out there, I go on them all because you can learn so much from each other and paint in the different genres. Now again, use the tip of your brush if you can. Don't have that paint going. If it comes all the way up to the metal ferrule, then what will happen is, while the paint, as it gets clogged up over time, it'll splay your brush bristles out. Now as you can see, I'm using Army Painter. Some people don't like them, some people do. I've had some naff ones, and I've had some, like this one's held its point for a while. I do actually have Winsor & Newtons that, if you've seen my bust videos, I use Winsor & Newton for that. Now where there aren't creases, obviously you go over a wider area. But even then, it's almost, if your paint is thin, and I can't emphasize this enough, use thin paint. It doesn't have to be opaque. We're not doing glaze. We're not going to be doing fancy Dan things here. We're not glazing or blending or anything. It's still like a layered technique, but you're not, you don't want to be putting things on like a very thick creamy consistency. As I say, go thicker on the base. For any of the newbies out there, don't, on a lighter colour like this, don't think you're going to get coverage on your base layers in one go, because it won't happen. You'll have bleed through, and all you'll do is, again, if you're new to the painting world, is keep, well, I'll just put thicker coat on it, and that's when you end up with, big lumpy consistency painting. Just be prepared that you're going to have to put thinner layers on. There is slight bleed through on this one, but because obviously I've been painting for a fair while, and I do it for a living, I know that where it's bleeding through isn't going to be a problem for myself, because I know where I'm going to be putting my highlights. So that's the back of that one. I'm not sure how this is. It's still it'll be showing up fairly yellowy under the lights. I'm hoping till I mean, this is the brush I'm using is a character brush. You can go bigger. Just use a brush that you're comfortable. You'll often hear people saying, "Oh, if you use a teeny weeny brush, there's no need. I only use like a Winsor & Newton Series 1 style brush," and that's great. If you want to do that, fill your boots. But see, oh, good. We've got a. Now this is the technique that I use doing this, is not going to be something that you're going to be able to rush in figures out for. If you've got a regiment that you need to get on the table quick, this won't be, sorry you can't see that, this won't be a technique for you maybe. You'll see even now that it'll have like a chalky appearance. But that, as we add the paint to it and build the layers up, I didn't do a great job under there, so I might have to have a bit of base coat under there. That chalkiness will go away. I don't believe the technique that I'm showing, well, it's not a technique, is it? It's just the way I paint, but what I'm showing you is you're not going to be able to jump from, just miss out bits on this, because you will end up with a chalky figure. You might be able to get away with it afterwards by making a paint wash up and trying to get away with it that way. But and this is just how I paint, which is why as a commission painter I don't get a lot of figures out quickly. Another thing as well people sometimes don't do is, I've been actually quite good here, I'm not wiping it all over my hands, but once I've put the paint in, once I put the brush in the paint, I will actually wipe it off slightly like this on on my skin or my nail, whichever you want to do. I'm using a piece of paper towel beside me just because I'm conscious that I'm not getting things in shot. But I would advise you to just do that little dab your brush on, either on your hand, on your piece of paper towel. I find the towel does suck up. Does suck up paint, but it just means that, because what will happen is you'll put your bristles down onto your figure, and that first amount of paint will end up pooling, and you'll have that telltale like pear-shaped, tear-shaped paint where you've started your brush run. Right, so we're going to stop the video at that, and I'll be back when I've done the rest of the figure, and then we'll be getting on to the next highlight. So I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.